Please be seated. There's no mistaking the solemnity of this day. It's captured from the moment this service begins. How we enter in silence. It's captured in the language that we use. It's captured in the music that we hear. It's captured throughout our senses and what we say, what we smell, what we'll taste. There's no mistaking the solemnity of this day. It's captured in the ofrenda that is here, created just for this occasion. The images, the symbols that stir. It's captured in the pictures that we see. Pictures of lost loved ones who, in their passing, they've left a hole in our heart like a well filled not with the water of rains, but with the tears of grief. There's no mistaking the solemnity of this day. And yet that's not the only current that runs through this service, is it? It's not the only sentiment. You just heard that spectacular hymn for all the saints, and did you feel it too, how we were buoyed up a bit? And these pictures, this ofrenda, look at these pictures because they are the faces smiling up at us. They are the images that remind us not only of people, but of moments that are to be celebrated. People who are to be celebrated, love that is to be celebrated. Solemnity is a part of this day, but so too is celebration. These are people to be celebrated. In just a moment, we're gonna enter into that movement of the necrology where you're invited to speak names out loud. But actually, before we even get there, I want to invite you to do something different. I want you to celebrate out loud by speaking a truth about your loved one, some feature that you particularly admired, some quality of their personality, some aspect of their character. I just want you to just fill this space with their spirit by not naming their names, but by celebrating their identities. Okay, so in the silence of your heart or in the top of your voices, invoke their spirits here. Right now. There is something for us to celebrate this day. And thank you for making my celebration a little bit richer because you have celebrated a loved one out loud. This is a strange day of the both and. Both the solemnity of loss and the joy of celebration and of life. Both and. And I think that the gospel story that Chase just read is a story that is, it's a sign for All Saints' Day, and it's a story that can help us hold this both and together as one. Both grief and hope, both sorrow and celebration. So we jump into the story kind of in midstream with Lazarus. It's called the raising of Lazarus, but let's be clear. Actually, this gospel, it's about more than just Lazarus. Sure enough, it's about Lazarus. It's also about Mary and Martha. It's also about Jesus. And if we can imagine, it's also about you and me and our loved ones too. Lazarus, you see, has fallen ill. We don't know much about Lazarus. We know that he's sick. We know that he's from Bethany. We know that his sisters are Martha and Mary. Mary, who just a little bit earlier in this gospel has knelt at Jesus' feet and anointed his feet with oil. We don't know much else about Lazarus. Although, if you are a reader of ancient Hebrew, then you might know this. Lazarus, translated, means God helps. Those gospel writers, they were pretty clever, weren't they? Lazarus is ill, and so then Mary and Martha, they send word to him, Jesus, the one you love, is sick. And in such a strange response, Jesus just stays where he is. He doesn't go anywhere. And I don't know about you, but me, I find that odd. And I will tell you that there are a number of scholars who have opined about why it was that Jesus stayed. I'm not going to talk about that. It's for another time. What we hear next, though, is that Lazarus has died. Mary and Martha are grief-stricken. They're in their home, surrounded by other mourners who are trying to console them, unable to leave the cave that has become their home. Well, word comes that Jesus is on his way to Bethany. And so Martha gets up. She goes out to meet him on the streets. Mary stays behind, perhaps because she is just overwhelmed and paralyzed in her grief. Can we not all relate to that? Martha finds Jesus on the street. She greets him. She greets him by saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would still be alive. And I have to pause there for a moment and wonder about her tone. Sometimes we domesticate these characters in these moments and we think, oh, she's so faithful, she's so humble. Maybe she's just angry. Maybe when she says, Lord, if you had been here, he would still be alive, she's sticking a knife in it a little bit, right? We don't know. We know that she's disturbed, though. We know that Jesus recognizes this. And so Jesus says to her, Martha, your brother will rise again. And I wonder what she thought of that, of those words, of that promise. Do you think that it gave her comfort, or do you think that her confusion only grew? Do you think that there was relief, or do you think that those questions, what are you talking about, still were on her lips? We don't know. So she goes running back. Jesus continues on the way. She goes running back. She gets to Mary and she says, Mary, he's here, he's coming. He wants to speak with you. And so now Mary finds the strength of her legs. She gets up and she goes out of the house, and she goes to Jesus and she falls at his knees and she says exactly what Martha said. Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would still be alive. And Jesus looks at her, she's weeping, and then we get what is the shortest verse in all of the Gospels. The language has changed a little bit in today's reading, but the shortest verse is this: Jesus wept. Jesus wept. I have to tell you that in all the pain and all the messiness and all the uncertainty of sitting with people as they are navigating loss, as they are grieving, when they are wondering, where is God? That verse has comforted me and been offered to them when nothing else can be said. Jesus wept. He says, well, take me to him. Let's go to the tomb. Lazarus is in the tomb. It's kind of like a cave, and they get to the tomb, and he says, well, let's roll the stone away. And this is where Martha and Mary, they are still seized by their grief and still very much living in the expected and the logical and the conventional and the familiar. And this is when they say, whoa, wait a sec, he's been dead 4 days. The stench would be terrible. Who can blame them for sort of still being fixed in the conventional? Because what Jesus is about to do defies all imagination. He says, roll away the stone. And then in words as simple as they are outrageous, he cries, Lazarus, come out. And what follows is as understated as it is miraculous. Lazarus comes out. He's bound, his hands and his feet, wraps around the face, and Jesus says, unbind him and let him go free. Is that a drop the mic moment or what? This gospel today is about many things. It's about Lazarus. It's about how Lazarus, bound, Lazarus dead, somehow is unbound, is set free, and enters into a new life beyond anything that we've seen or heard before. It's about Mary and Martha grieving, weeping, unsure about this Jesus, wanting and wondering. They had thought that he loved Lazarus. They had thought that he cared about them. They had thought that he had maybe these special powers to heal. They had thought that they were glimpsing something of the divine. They had thought that maybe even he was the Savior, the Messiah. They had thought all those things. And then, where was he in their time of need? He didn't come. They put out to him. He didn't come. And yet, Mary and Martha are able to muster up the strength to go to Jesus with their tears, with their wanting and wondering, to say, if you had been here, our brother would still be alive. What faith, what chutzpah. They hang in there. They don't get paralyzed in their home. They still come to Jesus. Imagine that. And of course, this story is about Jesus. Whatever we might imagine about him, we see that Jesus weeps with us. And whatever we might imagine about the life that transcends here, we get a glimpse that we are set free, that we are unbound, that we are invited to live a life beyond our wildest imaginings. By this Jesus, with this Jesus, through this Jesus. And if we can dare to imagine this story is about you and me and our loved ones too. And it says, go ahead and weep. Go ahead and grieve. The holy gets it. The holy will hold it. The holy will weep with us. But don't give up on life. Take your tears to the altar that is here. Can you imagine doing that? If we're going to celebrate All Saints' Day fully, with its solemnity and with its hope, then hang on to this story. Then walk with this story. Imagine that this story is a story for you and me as well. A story of pain and a story of hope. A story of pain and a story of promise. A story of pain and a story of possibility. This story today, All Saints' Day, invites us to still walk even when the grief takes our legs out from underneath us. This is a day for both and. And this story invites us both to gaze upon this ofrenda and weep, and to walk out of here and celebrate and imagine life. Both and. Anne Lamott, one of my favorite writers, I think she's been here to All Saints at a certain point in time. So Anne Lamott once wrote, "We must attempt to be Easter people living in a Good Friday time." That's a pretty good line, huh? Both and. We live in a Good Friday time, and we must attempt to be Easter people. Well, so my friends, there's no doubt that there are plenty of moments around us that feel like Good Friday, that are filled with the chaos, with the violence, with the pain and suffering of Good Friday. There's no doubt that we live in and through moments like that. The only question is, can we be Easter people when we come face to face with those moments? Amen.